He comes from Kentucky, and from the beginning, he combined gutsy emotion of country with the electricity of rock and roll and makes everything he does sound brand new. And that's made him a big hit.
Dwight Yoakam. By going against the grain and refusing to conform, he rose to fame. However, he vanished after that. What then transpired? Your beloved country artist's favorite country singer for a long time was Dwight. Dwight Yoakam was returning the genre to its origins at a time when his contemporaries were creating sweet ballads and pop crossover songs. He surprised Buck Owens in 1987 by dropping by his office unannounced and managed to persuade him to record a song. The Streets of Bakersfield was a huge success, even though Buck hadn't had a hit in a long time. Then, seemingly out of thin air, he vanished from the music industry altogether. For Buck Owens' burial in 2006, he came out of hiding for a little while. However, he appeared to be a completely different individual. Then what became of Dwight Yoakam? For what catastrophic reason did he vanish? Who was his actual girlfriend from the 90s? What is he doing now, above all else? Let's find out what became of the man who tried to challenge the country music industry, but was sorely defeated. Too raw for the industry. The path that country music singers typically take is one that is well-trodden. They begin their careers by working in clubs for a few years, then relocate to Nashville, where they play sessions for years, and finally, they get their big break. However, Dwight Yoakam did not play it that way, and the music industry would never forgive him for his behavior. As you can see, Dwight's early experiences taught him that Nashville was a con city. It was initially believed that he had come there from his home state of Ohio in order to secure a record deal, but this turned out to be a lie. He decided to go to Los Angeles instead, a city where punk music and country music were more likely to coexist than boardroom executives. Rather than engaging in the production of pop ballads, Dwight released record after record of genuine, gritty honky-tonk compositions. To begin, guitars, Cadillacs, and other models. And last but not least, there was Buenas Noches from a Lonely Room, which successfully sealed the deal. Dwight constantly made it a point to attack Nashville from a distance during the entire process. When Columbia Records decided to release Johnny Cash, he was very critical of the company. In addition, he criticized MTV for saying that it would not air videos of country music. She advised him that he needed to cease using the phrase hillbilly after he signed a record deal with Warner Music Nashville. They believed that the term was offensive to the music industry. However, Dwight continued to stand his ground for as long as he could. In addition, it seemed as though he was winning for a period of time. However, after that, he began to lose his momentum. The number of copies of his records that were sold was decreasing, and the establishment was showing him less and less respect. However, by the time 1995 arrived, it seemed as though he was facing defeat in his conflict with the Nashville machine. Instead of leaving behind a legacy, Dwight vanished without a trace during his lifetime. What little music he did release received virtually little attention from the public. In light of this, Dwight decided to pursue his talents in an unconventional path. Early life and humble career beginnings. On October 23, 1956, Dwight David Yoakam was born in Pikeville, Kentucky. His birthplace is Kentucky. As the eldest of the three children that David Yoakam and Ruth Ann Tibbs Yoakam had, he is the most senior of the bunch. After Yoakam was born, his father was already serving in the United States Army. Yoakam was born during this period. The Yoakam family relocated to Columbus, Ohio, following David Yoakam's release from the United States Coast Guard. At this point in time, the couple had a daughter named Kimberly and a second son who they shared the name Ronald. As this was going on, David was able to provide for his family by first working at a factory owned by Westinghouse Electric Corporation and then later becoming the proprietor of a Texaco gas station. While Yoakam's father was serving in the military, he was able to purchase a guitar that was built by the K Musical Instrument Company. After Yoakam's father was unable to learn how to play the guitar himself, he handed it to Yoakam. In spite of the fact that Yoakam eventually damaged this guitar, He was given a second guitar as a Christmas present when he was 8 years old and in the 4th grade. During this time period, he also composed his very first recording. Yoakam was influenced by the music that his parents listened to on records and by WMNI, which was an AM country music radio station in Columbus at the time. Yoakam has been influenced by both of these sources. Johnny Cash and Johnny Horton both contributed to compilations that were included in this collection. Yoakam's mother claims that when the family traveled to see Yoakam's maternal grandparents, they would also sing songs to each other while they were on the road. It was also reported by Yoakam himself that he was influenced by rock and roll acts that he had watched on television, such as Elvis Presley. The Yoakam family relocated to a different neighborhood in Columbus in 1968, and it was there that Yoakam obtained his high school education. Yoakam was a member of the school band through which his mother encouraged all 3 of her children to participate. Yoakam played drums in the band. Additionally, he participated in a drama class, which ultimately led to him being cast in the role of Charlie in a production of Flowers for Algernon. After some time had passed, Yoakam stated that this performance had helped him become more confident when performing in front of other people. During Yoakam's final year of high school, he and a few of his friends came together to establish a rock and roll band in order to compete in the talent competition held by the school. Eventually, the band gained such a high level of popularity that they started playing as the Greaser Band at a variety of private parties all across the city of Columbus. Yoakam was a student at Ohio State University, but he ultimately decided to leave school in order to concentrate on his career as a musician. Yoakam was contacted by a man who threatened to offer him a musical deal while he was performing at a club in Gahanna, Ohio. However, the individual turned out to be a con artist for the time being. The decision to relocate to Nashville, Tennessee in order to continue pursuing a career in country music was made by Yoakam despite this possibility. His approach was more beholden to honky-tonk and bluegrass music at a time when such sounds were not popular in comparison to country pop and Nashville sound. As a result, he encountered challenges in the Nashville music industry. Following that, Yoakam relocated to Los Angeles, California, with the support and encouragement of Billy Alves, who had previously been a member of the Greaser Band. In 1982, he met Pete Anderson, a guitarist and record producer, at a pub in Los Angeles. Although he was initially unsuccessful there as well, he eventually became friends with Anderson. Following the realization that they shared a passion for performers like Merle Haggard, the two individuals became friends with one another. Additionally, Anderson made the observation that groups like Joe Ely, Rank and File, and Lone Justice were responsible for the popularity of cowpunk and alternative country music in the state of California. By performing at venues where these other acts were also appearing, Yoakam was able to increase his exposure to a wider audience. Where did Dwight go? The question is, where did Dwight Yoakam go? All of his efforts were directed at the screen. At this point in time, it appears that every actor aspires to be a musician, and every musician aspires to also be an actor. There are some people who are truly successful in making that change, but there are a great many more who are not. To answer your question, did Dwight have what it took to establish himself in the Hollywood industry? To begin, Dwight had a modest role in a crime drama when he first began his acting career. As time went on, however, his career started to take off. The film Sling Blade, which was directed by Billy Bob Thornton, featured him in a key part. All right, I told you to leave my place immediately. C***** suckers and R**** tards are also included in this category. There was also the film The Newton Boys, which was directed by Richard Linklater. Sheryl Crow was one of the actors he appeared in together in the movie The Minus Man. Dwight was, drumroll please, a really successful individual, if you can believe it. He earned a reputation for playing charismatic and diabolical villains, which is a far cry from his musical image, which is endlessly lovable. He received some praise when the cast of Sling Blade won a Screen Actors Guild Award. But after that, Dwight started to have some ideas. Having a name in the film industry was not enough. Because he desired to be in charge, he devised a strategy to achieve this goal. In his very own Western, he would not only write, but also direct and appear in the film. In addition to that, he would be responsible for the music. At this point, what could possibly go wrong? On the other hand, it turns out that a great deal. Following the decision of the film's funder to withdraw from the project just prior to the beginning of production, Dwight was left with choices. He had the option of either canceling his passion project or paying for it on his own. Dwight clenched his teeth and coughed up the cash, but it came at a significant expense to him. It was necessary for him to sell his home in Malibu. In addition, the situation continued to deteriorate in some way. When Dwight went to pay individuals, he found that he had less money than he had anticipated, and his production company succumbed to bankruptcy in a very short amount of time. It turned out that half of the cast filed a lawsuit against him. The majority of Dwight's supporting band was terminated because he accumulated up such a significant amount of debt. To put it another way, these individuals had been by his side during the entirety of his career. At the very least, the movie was a great success, that's for sure. Not at all, of course not. At the same time, it was a commercial and critical bomb. Even though Dwight was still known for his acting abilities, he was in the process of paying off his debts for a number of years. I was curious about what he was doing in the interim. To begin, he was attempting to find love, which led to a significant number of complications. Yoakam was also into acting. Over the course of his career, Yoakam has been in a number of films and television shows. He had a recurring role in the criminal thriller P.S. Ye Love You, which aired on CBS in 1991. This was one of his earliest roles. In the film Red Rock West, which was released in 1993, he also had a part. Yoakam was chosen to play the role of Doyle Hargraves in the film Sling Blade, which was directed by Billy Bob Thornton, an actor from 1996. Sling Blade was the first role in Yoakam's acting career that he believed would have a lasting influence, and he stated this on the website Country Daily in 2016. Yoakam's management had suggested that he cast himself in the role. An award for outstanding performance by a cast in a motion picture was presented to Yoakam and the other members of the film's cast in 1997. Yoakam was one of the nominees for the award. He made an appearance in the film The Newton Boys, which was directed by Richard Linklater and released in 1998. He also penned the majority of the songs for his album A Long Way Home at these films' filming sites, which were spread out over Austin, Texas. Yoakam and Sheryl Crow made an appearance in the suspense film The Minus Man, which was released in 1999. South of Heaven, West of Hell was a Western film that he co-wrote, directed, and performed in for the following year. It is also worth noting that he composed a soundtrack with the same name. Many members of the film's crew filed lawsuits against Yoakam in small claims court because the movie was a financial flop throughout its production. In addition, Yoakam terminated Pete Anderson's membership in his touring band in the year 2002 in order to make up for the financial losses that were incurred as a result of this film. Despite the fact that he admired the individual songs and the fact that they featured contributors such as Becca Bramlett, Mick Jagger, and Billy Gibbons, Zach Johnson of AllMusic criticized the soundtrack for having bits of film dialogue in between tracks. Yoakam appeared in the film Panic Room, which was directed by David Fincher and released in 2002. As a result of the fact that both roles were fragmented and required repetition of performance, he stated to the Associated Press prior to the premiere of the film that he did not consider acting to be considerably different from recording music. Banditas, The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada, and Wedding Crashers were some of the films in which he had appearances in the years 2005 and 2006. In the second season of the science fiction series Under the Dome, which first aired on CBS in 2014, Yoakam appeared in a recurring role. Additionally, he became acquainted with Thornton once again for the first season of the original series Goliath that was produced by Amazon Prime Video, Yoakam's music style and influences. The style of Yoakam is characterized by a wide range of influences, both from within and beyond the realm of country music. Country rock, rockabilly, honky-tonk, neo-traditional country, and the Bakersfield sound are some of the musical styles that have influenced this genre. It was said by Colin Larkin in the Virgin Encyclopedia of Country Work that Yoakam's work displayed influences from the honky-tonk country music of Buck Owens and Lefty Frizzle, as well as a distinct antipathy toward the Nashville pop country scene. With his stripped-down approach to traditional honky-tonk and Bakersfield country, Dwight Yoakam helped return country music to its roots in the late 80s, said Stephen Thomas Erlewine of AllMusic. He was a significant contributor to the revival of country music. In addition, Erlewine mentioned that the majority of Yoakam's followers were those who were interested in listening to rock and roll and roots rock albums. Pete Anderson's electric guitar work was compared to that of Don Rich, who was a member of Buck Owens' backing band, the Buckaroos, by Tom Jurek of AllMusic. Jurek believed that Pete Anderson's electric guitar work was also an important component of his sound. Jurek was also of the opinion that Yoakam's rock influences could be seen in the prominent use of electric guitar and Hammond organ in his music. The term fragmented that Yoakam uses to characterize his own songwriting style follows. He said to Al Caudell of American Songwriter that the typical process of writing songs for him involved first conceiving of a melody and then deciding on the atmosphere that he wanted to convey. Thereafter, he stated that he would formulate a thesis for the song based on his findings. Additionally, he added that he preferred not to write in a linear method because he believed that producing a song in a single session would cause him to feel artistically exhausted. In addition, he stated that his childhood memories played a significant role in shaping his approach to songwriting, particularly in the bluegrass music that he listened to. He expressed his appreciation for the irony that's always been a part of bluegrass in that it sets melodic, lilting melodies and upbeat tempos with the most tragic lyrics. He made this statement in an interview with an American songwriter. According to Cindy Holzel of Gavin Report, Yoakam's appeal extends beyond the realm of traditional country music. In 1993, she stated that his records sold across the board to middle-aged Stonewall Jackson fans and to young punk rockers who'd seen Dwight do his thing in L.A., opening shows for Los Lobos and the Violent Femmes. An article published in the Los Angeles Times by Richard Cromlin described Yoakam's musical persona as that of a brooding, intensely private figure driven by restless ambition and an edgy intellectuality more commonly found in rock stars. Yoakam stated in the same article that I found out early that one of the ways I was able to make contact was through musical expression. Yoakam was referring to the phenomenon of musical expression. In a similar vein, he stated in an interview with Gavin Report in 1993 that, "To be absolutely dissection analytical is my nature. The songwriting, on the other hand, requires me to leave it in a location that is not." Yoakam was described as a bluntly outspoken advocate of hardcore honky-tonk music by Al Caudell of American Songwriter. In the early stages of his career, Yoakam was subjected to unfavorable attention from the Nashville music industry as a result of his persistent criticism of the genre. Some of the things that he was critical of were the fact that MTV refused to air country music videos and that Columbia Records had dropped Johnny Cash. In response to these accusations, he subsequently said that, "I learned a couple albums in that my opinions and observations on the industry were not pertinent to what I needed to do as an artist, so I just really began to focus solely on what I was doing at the time." On stage, Yoakam's usual attire is another aspect that contributes to the formation of his musical persona. The author of the Virgin Encyclopedia of Country Music, Colin Larkin, stated that, like Don Williams and others, he retains the traditional Stetson hat. Within the context of her review of If There Was a Way, Alana Nash stated, When Dwight Yoakam first appeared on the scene, with his trendy retro attitude, concha-studded trousers, and music that frequently brushed the edge of rock and roll, it was difficult to determine whether or not the California cowboy was for real. The conclusion was made abundantly evident by his third album, which was titled Buenas Noches, From a Lonely Room. The album's primary cycle of songs is a traditional murder story that recalls the pride, heartache, betrayal, and vengeance that are characteristic of the history of the hillbilly subculture. Ripped jeans were a common sight for Yoakam, according to Al Caudell of American Songwriter. It was written by Daryl Smyers of the Dallas Observer that Yoakam was championed by a surprising mix of punks, rockabilly hounds, and hardcore honky-tonkers. Yoakam was known for his outrageously huge hat and his fashion style, which was reminiscent of the Flying Burrito Brothers outfits. A member of the Rapid City Journal named Leonard Running utilized the term plaintive, yodel-edged voice to describe Yoakam's singing style. His voice is pure and sweet, but a precise tool, was the statement made in a review of Gone in No Depression that was not publicly attributed. It is only on extremely rare occasions, such as in the show Try Not to Look So Pretty, that it truly makes an emotional impact. The singing voice of Yoakam was described as having a high, lonesome twang and a sweetly nasal tenor by J.D. Considine, who was a reporter for the Baltimore Sun. A similar assessment was made by the editors of the Encyclopedia of Country Music, who stated that Yoakam possesses a twangy tenor, simply too spellbinding for country radio to ignore. In addition, these editors believed that Yoakam was better able to break through into mainstream country music than his contemporaries, such as Lyle Lovett and Steve Earle, due to the fact that mainstream country has found it easier to digest distorted guitars than ironic lyrics. Unlucky with the ladies. When it comes to our favorite musicians, it is simple to connect them with the music that they release. This is a complete and utter disregard for the fact that they also have a real life behind the scenes. While Dwight was struggling with the rejection of Nashville and Hollywood at the same time, he was also dealing with some very personal difficulties within himself. To put it another way, Dwight was caught between two different civilizations. It was too country for him to perform in Hollywood, and he was too rock and roll for Nashville. So, could this have contributed to his lady problems? Well, let's find out. Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone played legendary roles in the films Total Recall and Basic Instinct. He was a source of great joy for me. Therefore, everyone was taken aback when she appeared at the 1992 Academy Awards beside Dwight Yoakam, who was neither an actor nor a model to be found. The traditional cowboy hat was, of course, on his head. Although it's true that Dwight was just off of winning a Grammy, that's a very different level of star power. The question is, how did things end up? To be honest, it's not the best. Sharon went around town stating that kissing him was like a dirt sandwich, after they had only dated for a few weeks. This happened after the couple had only dated for a short period of time. A. Duffy, Karen. As a result of the experience, Dwight realized that he should not swim with the sharks. After that, he had a relationship with Karen Duffy, who was most known for her performance in the film Dumb and Dumber. They were together for a period of 2 years, but this relationship did not hold up either. As he moved on to his next woman, Dwight made the decision to remain in his comfort zone, which was country music. Winona Judd, a country singer, was his girlfriend for a short period of time. It was alleged that Winona told somebody, quote, "Find me that man in the cowboy hat, and he's mine." Dwight's band was performing as the opening act for Winona. However, neither of the artists, who were both on tour across the country, were able to find a place to call home for a sufficient amount of time for a genuine romantic relationship to develop. After what seemed like an eternity, Dwight would eventually be blessed with a fortunate break. When the moment came, however, you can bet your bottom dollar that he was prepared. Where is Dwight Yoakam today? Given his circumstances, a great number of people would entirely give up on music. Dwight was able to achieve such a high level of success in Hollywood that he did not require music in order to thrive. This individual does not operate in that manner. The year 2012 marked the year that Dwight made a comeback with a vengeance after years of commercial failure. 3 Pairs is the name of the album that he released. Since that time, he has continued to release more records that are of a quite high quality. This is well known. There is no longer a requirement for everyone to be a pop hitmaker because the music industry has evolved. At this point in time, I believe that there is more room than ever before for true artists, such as Dwight Yoakam, to appeal to a relatively tiny but extremely devoted fan base. It's not the only thing that's new, though. Recently, fans were taken aback when they learned that Dwight had tied the knot. To a model or a starlet, the answer is no. Emily Joyce, a typical and unremarkable young lady as she is known. As far as dating gigantic stars is concerned, it appears that Dwight has learnt his lesson. Actually, the only thing we know about Emily is that she is a photographer, and I'm very sure that both of them would have preferred it if they had known more about her. The 2 smitten individuals had been dating since the year 2010, but they had concealed their relationship for the entire decade. So in the year 2020, they decided that they had had enough of waiting around and made the decision to get married. However, there was a single little issue. As a result of the lockdown regulations, there could be no more than 10 persons present. However, I do not believe that Dwight's concern was genuine. Things is possible that he would have desired things to be that way. And only a few short months after their wedding, they made the announcement that they were expecting a son called Dalton. Even though Dwight was 63 years old, he was not going to let that get in the way of his progress. Now, I'd want to share some unfortunate news with you. Dwight is not a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame. What the heck is going on? It would appear that Nashville has not yet found a way to forgive him for his refusal to comply with their intentions. Dwight, on the other hand, is not the type of person who harbors resentment. Acting and his fresh spanking new family are working behind the scenes of his music. There is more than enough for Dwight Yoakam to keep him occupied for a full day. In addition to it, he is an entrepreneur. Bakersfield Biscuits is the name of his nationwide brand of frozen goods that he owns and operates. Dwight had legal issues. When Pete Anderson, a longtime producer and guitarist, launched a lawsuit against him in 2004, he claimed that he had violated an oral contract by failing to perform a number of concert dates in the middle of 2002. According to the allegations made in the lawsuit, Yoakam's failure to appear at these performances resulted in Anderson losing more than $44,000 in income. The case between Yoakam and Anderson was resolved out of court, with Yoakam claiming that some of the financial troubles that arose as a result of these concerts were due to money that was lost as a result of the commercial failure of South of Heaven, West of Hell. According to Anderson, Yoakam didn't want him around anymore as a result of this financial issue, which also resulted in the collaboration between the 2 musicians failing. Anderson stated in an interview with Style Weekly in 2011 that he continued to admire Yoakam's artistic abilities, but that he had no plans to collaborate with him again. When Warner Music removed numerous of Yoakam's tracks off streaming services in 2021 owing to the expiration of his contract, Yoakam launched a lawsuit against the record label. It was his assertion that the record label was refusing to grant him the ability to reclaim the rights to the tunes. A resolution was reached in February 2022 about the disagreement, and shortly after that, the songs were made available on streaming sites once again. Who out there is a fan of Dwight Yoakam? Give me your favorite album, his best song. Have you ever seen the guy perform live? Do you think he's actually a good actor? If you enjoyed our deep dive into Dwight Yoakam's life, hit that thumbs up icon and subscribe to our channel. Till next time.